Good evening. I am Isaac Keith Martinez, and welcome to Isaac's Haunted Beard, episode 10. That's right, this is my 10th episode of Isaac's Haunted Beard, and I thought it'd be pretty cool to do a top 10 list. I've been a horror film fan my entire life, and I've always been asked, why do you love horror films? So instead of answering that question 10 million more times, I'm just going to refer people to this video. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my top 10 reasons for loving horror films. Reason number 10. Suspension of disbelief. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how much you know monsters don't exist. When you turn those lights down and you get behind the covers and you're comfy on your couch in the safety of your own home or even in a crowded theater for 90 minutes, you will believe in monsters. And I love that about horror films. People get scared. I don't see that kind of reaction from people when they watch action films or when they watch science fiction films. Sure, they're exciting, but they don't actually get scared. And that's one of the reasons why I love horror films, folks, because horror films can bring a feeling out of you that few other films can touch. So that's my reason number 10, suspension of disbelief. Reason number 9, graphic violence. There, I said it. I'm a sicko, right? I beg to differ. I feel that, like anyone else, I have the ability to get frustrated, to get angry, and I might have some thoughts that aren't so kind, shall we say. Let's say somebody makes you angry, you want to do something really awful to them. You know what? I have horror films to turn to. I can watch a horror film and see despicable people and monsters and slashers and all kinds of bad guys mess up other people, and maybe this isn't something I should admit, but I can kind of vicariously live through that villain and in real life not hurt a fly. Well, maybe a fly. But there's something kind of fun about seeing some carnage. I think it's a little healthy. So that's my reason number 9. Although lots of kinds of movies have violence, not the way horror films do. So reason number 9, graphic violence. Reason number 8, creativity. I think that creativity is something that you are going to see in spades, in animation and in science fiction and, in all kinds of films. But there's a certain type of imagination that's reserved for horror films that you're not going to see in other genres. You have to think up the reason why this house is haunted or what this monster is going to look like. So in the hands of a very creative person, you may see something in a horror film that you've not seen anywhere else. And that's my number 8 reason for loving horror films, creativity. Reason number 7, monsters. Now, creativity and monsters kind of go hand in hand. Granted, some horror films have monsters that are based on folklore or urban legends, but some monsters are exclusive to horror films, and that is a result of a very creative mind. I like monsters. I liked monsters ever since I was a little kid and I watched Sesame Street and we got to see the Cookie Monster and Grover. I love monsters and I never grew out of it. So horror films give me monsters and I thank horror films for that. Now that leads us to number 6, slashers. Now, being a kid from the 80s, the slasher generation, these are the monsters of our time. Now, maybe our grandparents had Frankenstein and the Creature from the Black Lagoon and Dracula, but we had slashers, and these were our superstars. We had Jason, we had Freddy, we had Leatherface, we had Michael Myers, we had Chucky, we had the Tall Man, we have Ghostface, we have Candyman, we have Victor Crowley, we have Horace Pinker, the list goes on and on. These people are action figures, they're posters, they're t-shirts, they are the boogeymen that makes me lose sleep in a good way. So, slashers, I love ya. Keep on slashing. Okay, number 5. One of the things I really love about horror films is something that other people pick on about horror films, and that's franchises. I've heard a lot of people pick on franchises. They say they milk something until it's dry. You know what? Maybe that's true, but I don't really care. I actually love that. If I love a character, whether it be a good guy or a bad guy, or a great story, and I want to revisit it over and over again, thank goodness that horror films really milk the heck out of their characters and their franchises. And that means that when there's a part 2 or a part 5 or a part 8 or a part 14 or a part 22 or a part... I'm there in the theater, or I'm at the video store, or I'm renting that or buying the DVD or the Blu-ray, and I'm a lifelong fan. I love franchises. I love Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Final Destination, Child's Play, Candyman, The Omen, Phantasm, Jaws, Reanimator, Sleepaway Camp, George Romero's Dead films, the Return of the Living Dead films, The Howling, Scream, Wrong Turn, Evil Dead, Wishmaster, Prom Night, Feast, Hatchet, Poltergeist, The Lost Boys trilogy. I love franchises. I love them. They're like my favorite blanket that keep me warm. Okay, reason number 4, horror movie stars. I love regular movies. Don't think that I just like horror films. I love regular movies and I love regular movie stars. But there's a certain kind of movie star that's very specific to horror films that are famous to people like myself and maybe you, that isn't famous to everybody else. This is the kind of person that can walk down the street and not get recognized, but for that 1 in a millionth person, they'll go cuckoo bananas when they see him. They're like, oh my god, I can't believe it's you! May I have your autograph? Can we take a picture together? And these are people that are famous because they are spooky, or maybe if they are a woman, they're really good at screaming, or just, you know, there's just different reasons of what makes a different person a horror movie icon or a movie star. There's your good guys, there's your bad guys, there's your scream queens, there's your final girls, there's your horror host. And I love Bruce Campbell, Vincent Price, Elvira, Kane Hodder, Robert Englund, Ted Raimi, Tony Todd, Zachary, Daniel Harris, Linnea Quigley, Brink Stevens, Jeffrey Combs, Robert Crampton, Gunnar Hansen, Bill Moseley, Camille Keaton, Chloe Gulager, Ingrid Pitt, Vampira, Christopher Lee, Bela Lugosi, Tor Johnson, Lon Chaney Sr., Lon Chaney Jr., Boris Karloff, Linda Blair, Sherry Moon Zombie, Peter Lord, Dick Miller, Angus Scrimm, Michael Berryman, Ken Foray, Dee Wallace, Sid Haig, Brad Dourif, and the list goes on and on. I love all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A million times thank you for entertaining me my whole life. Number 3, insanity! I don't know if you've noticed, folks, but I'm a little cuckoo, and I thank horror films for helping me. You know, I think that for as crazy as I may come across to anyone, I think it'd be 10 million more times if I didn't have horror films. I think horror films is the pill. It's the chill pill that I take that makes me feel better, because when I watch a horror film, I can see some of the wildest, craziest, zaniest, wackiest, off-the-wall, out-of-control stuff I've ever seen in my life, and then return to my normal existence where I open the closet and no monsters are going to jump out and bat my head off. So, insanity. Number 2, and this is one of the ones that's a hard sell if you're not a horror film fan. They're funny! They're hilarious! Now granted, not all horror films are funny. Some of them are very serious and they're very dramatic. But a lot of them, and I think fellow horror film fans will attest to this, will agree that horror films are so off the wall, they're so out of control, they're so wild, they're so crazy, that sometimes they're just zany. Sometimes they're funny on purpose, sometimes they're funny on accident, sometimes they're so bad they're good, sometimes they're so bad they're funny, sometimes they're funny and they're in on the joke. They're funny. So I've seen horror films that are funnier than some of the funniest comedies I've ever seen. So number 2, they're funny. And my number 1 reason for loving horror films, now, not necessarily my number 1 reasons, because I don't want you to think that these reasons necessarily puts them in an order of importance, but number 1 in the list of 10, I love being in a special club. Some people love being mainstream and part of the masses. I don't. I actually really embrace fringe culture, counterculture. I love being a part of the outlaw culture. I love that rock and roll culture. I love being different from everybody else and being proud of it. And horror films are to cinema what rock music is to popular music. You know, it's the thing that you don't want your daughter to date. It's something that you look at, you know, a little, and when you love these horror films, you know that you're part of that special club because you like something that not everyone gets. And so much so that they always ask you, why do you like horror films? And that's what we just went through, folks. Why I love horror films. Subscribe to Isaac's Haunted Beard on YouTube. Like Isaac's Haunted Beard on Facebook. And follow Isaac's Haunted Beard at Isaac's Haunted Bee on Twitter. Thank you. Bye-bye.